little talk here, not for seasoned collectors, but for people who are starting in the hobby. And what I want to talk about is Caruso recordings, because you'll find them more than anyone else. Even with old G&Ts, Caruso was an amazing seller. And just to give you an idea, this is a Caruso G&T from 1902. We know it's 1902, first off, for several reasons. These records sold tremendously, and they had to make multiple stampers. Now, unfortunately, when they made the first Caruso recordings in 1902, and that was in April of 1902, they did not have the technology to make multiple stampers from a master. They were able to make one stamper from the master, and that was it. And if you look at this recording, you will see nothing on the runoff areas except for writing on the label itself. Look carefully, and you'll see that writing right on the label. This is a first generation recording. Therefore we know this is the first stamper. And the first stamper was very, very important because it's the freshest recording we can get of the singer, whoever they may be. Being that they did not have a system to make multiple stampers, therefore they had to try a daring idea, and that was they would take the somewhat worn stamper and press it onto the wax, a wax master, and by doing so they would make a new recording, and therefore they could gold sputter it and make a master and then make a stamper from that new recording, which wasn't a new recording, it was a copy from the stamper. But nonetheless, they were able to stamp out many, many more records. This is a second generation Caruso recording. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see nothing really written on the label, but you will see on the side here, copy, CO. That means it's a copy of the original recording. Now, I started collecting Caruso records in 1971. By 1975, I was really getting into it and had acquired my first G&T. And there was CO on the side. I didn't know what it meant. Well, you know, people didn't know too much what was going on years ago because we were all feeling our way through this hobby because there was a lot of information that was not passed around, so we had to learn. Now, over the years, many people have researched Caruso. One person I can think of, John Bolig. He wrote several books. He's written many, many books. He's become a guru on Victor. And I remember I bought his discography of Caruso in 1975. Check my date here. I think it's, 1975 I bought this. 40 years ago. And it's had a lot of wear. It's had a lot of use over the many years, and I have filled it with copious notes of things that I have learned and come to understand, and made notes throughout the book over things that I have learned. Now, one of the things I found in trying to learn and talking to lots of people in the 1970s, and I sat down and talked with Ray Wild a lot. He was such a master of information with the phonograph. And I would just sit there and talk on the phone with him for hours, and he would just regale me with information. And we talked about that whole thing, and of course, John Bolig, more recently, has listed lots of information about that whole thing with copies. You know, this is the copy. That's what that means, CO. He also mentioned the fact that he had something that was marked repro. I've never seen that, but I'm sure some of them have that. And, of course, this brings us to a whole different thing here. That the Victor series, the 5000 series, the Victor series of 1903, 1904, with the imported labels, some of them are copies. Now, if you look carefully, this is the Gioconda recording. This is the Victor example of the gramophone example that I had just shown you. Of course, it says copy here. It does not say copy on the Victor records. They removed that. So, one thing you should know for young collectors, that's what I'm talking about. I want to reach young collectors and explain to them some of this. That the copied records would be shipped to Victor. That's the way they made copies before late 1902. You know, there are recordings from the second and third recording sessions of Caruso, which was like, November 30th, December 1st, 1902, where that new process was being used. Now, got to remember, this is true for every company. We forget that fact. You could make between maybe 400 to 1,000 copies with a stamper. That's about it. And then that stamper becomes no good. So if you have a record made in 1901, you know that came from a stamper that could not be replaced. And it's a very unique recording. Maybe one between, 800 recordings. Perhaps let's make an average here. So, remember this about Caruso records. You have your first issues that have marking on the label. You have the copies, repros. You have the Victors made of those copies. And then starting in late 1902, you have the system developed where they can make multiple stampers. I've been meaning to make a recording of this for a while and explain this. But let me once again just go over this very quickly. You have your first generation, the second generation of stampers before late 1902 would be basically taking the stamper, pressing it into wax, and making another copy, which would not have the fidelity of the first copy. Wouldn't be too bad, but it would be different. So just so you know and understand what CO means. And I wish you good luck in your collecting. As I said, I've been collecting for many, many years. Us dinosaurs know a lot of this stuff, but we often don't share some of the information.